Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Steinour. Thank you for following my ministry. This week, I've been reading out of the book of Esther, and I felt like there was a message that I was to share with you from this book. We know that Esther was a young Jewish girl. She lived with her cousin Mordecai, who worked for the king. And Mordecai had found out that the king was looking for a new queen. And so Esther was presented as one of the possible candidates. We know that Esther must have been extremely beautiful because she was chosen to be the next queen, and a huge banquet was thrown in her honor. Well, there was another man that worked for the king, and his name was Haman. And Haman was a fairly evil man. He really had it in for Mordecai. He didn't like him, he wanted rid of him. And so he made a plan, talked the king into writing into law, a law that would annihilate and get rid of all the Jews, men, women, and children. They'd all be killed in the land. The king did not know that Queen Esther was a Jew. She had kept that nationality a secret from him. So when Mordecai found out about this plan, he went to Queen Esther and he said, "You have to help us. We need your help." And the problem was she wasn't invited into the king's chambers for another 30 days. If she went in unannounced, she could be put to death. There's a very popular verse that's in Esther. It's chapter 4, verse 14, and it's Mordecai talking to Esther. And he said, "Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this?" You know, she could have ignored the situation. She could have tried to save herself, but not her people. But she prayed and she fasted, and she came to the conclusion that she was in that place of position for a purpose. And she said, "If I must die, I must die." She was willing to lay down her life for her people. As the story goes, the king held out his scepter to her and granted her the ability to come into his inner chamber. And she was able to invite him to a banquet where the whole story pans out that as it ended up, Haman was actually executed and all of the Jewish people were saved. But I want you to think about the fact that God has a plan and a purpose for each one of our lives. You know, sometimes we're at a place in our life where we think there's nothing much that we can do, that we're unworthy or we're inadequate or we're incapable of making a change around us. But you know, God has a plan and a purpose for every one of our lives, and it's a plan and a purpose to further his kingdom. There is something that each one of you are to do for him. And you are here for such a time as this. I want you to think about this story this week. Think about what it is that God is calling you to do. He has you right where you are for a purpose. And I just want you to realize that you are here for that purpose. And you are adequate and you are capable because with him, you can do all things. So just think about that this week. I will bring you another message next week. And in the meantime, hit the share button below so that we can share the word of God to those around us.